I'm trying to decide if I should say something. The pollen, spring is here, and my eyes are killing me.
We're both
fighting for our lives.
We're both suffering.
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is I'm watching Feud, Capote versus the Swans, Season 2, Episode 8. Phantasm Forgiveness. I kind of loved it. Let me put it this way. I certainly loved parts of it.
Yes, I'll say that. I'll agree with that. I think my issue is it would have felt for me much more poignant to go out with last week's episode.
Yes, but I needed this material.
Well, then they would have
had to have found a way to work it into the show, or maybe there's like an edit where you can combine the two.
Something like that. I
wouldn't hate that.
Something, because
was missed. Her presence.
I just think there was such a lovely notion to the end of episode 7, and then this felt like just clunky and weird, and also he was sober and then he was drinking again, and then Anne Woodward was there for like really no reason. I feel like Demi Moore and Molly Ringwald were useless.
Okay.
In this.
This doesn't happen a lot. Technically, yes.
Narratively, this was a mess.
But the vibes.
Yes, again, I agree about the vibes, but it's like vibes can only take me so far. When you think you're making prestige TV,
I think
he thinks he's making prestige TV.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Capote thinks he's making prestige.
Well, he did though.
Twice.
Once. Breakfast at Tiffany's is not really prestige.
I do want to say, yes, I do agree that Anne Woodward was the most tacked on.
Yeah.
However, to
this episode specifically.
Yeah, but I think that was as good a reason or as good a way as any.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had, maybe I also wish there was an episode before the premiere.
Yeah.
Like, I wish that we got that note about her reminding him of his mother sooner, and if we did, I didn't remember it.
And not like a Once Upon a Time style MacGuffin that, hey, we need this in this moment, so here it is.
I really liked the fan fiction aspect of this. Unfortunately, I think it peaked hard with CZ.
In this
episode, I think that was the best part of the episode.
I also think that if you're gonna go with like a, historical fiction fanficky type of thing, you need to go harder. It needs to be more. I think narratively and tone wise, this show had no idea what it was doing, and it's like you can't just slap the Feud saga and Gus Van Sant on this and pretend like it was a like super successful show. The acting, fantastic. No notes. The acting was above board, completely great.
That's the part that I liked, that was just being in the presence of these women.
Yeah, but I think it's like you're not you specifically, but it's like you're counting too much on these amazing actors elevating your thing, where it's like, imagine what would happen if you gave them something elevated to work with. Because like overall, I find myself disappointed by almost every aspect of this show. Because it's just, but why? Like, for what? It doesn't even feel like it came to anything in the end. Because also, a non-zero chunk of this finale was footage from the previous episode in the first place.
Sure, yeah, I mean, the points... I don't know where to go with the conversation, because the points you're making...
You're like, it's valid, but
yeah, well,
no,
but I keep falling back on the fact that I enjoyed watching
again,
this,
and I agree with you. I enjoyed watching it.
So
but
if you're saying it could, or you're saying it should have been better,
I think it should have been better, and I think it could have been better. Here I guess is the crux of the thing for me. Is it's like, yes, I had a great time watching it. Again, acting spectacular, all of that. I'm never gonna think about the show again. I think it's gonna just erase from my brain.
I will. But again, we've talked about this recently, but I think it's also a little bit who we are as people. I'm more of a CZ and you're more of a Slim. Like you're more practical, sure. And I'm very nostalgic and I'm very sentimental and I'm very romantic, and that I keep going back to CZ, but the fake conversation he had with her in the restaurant where she rebutted and she was like, you're still, even in death, missing the point. And I literally said, I was like, this is what I've needed. I needed the show to spell it out. Okay. The reading between the lines wasn't working. But
for me, that was too little too late. And it's like, we should have
I wish it was more present.
We should have been doing that kind of, because they all just were like, he betrayed us.
Because for me, that scene sort of contextualizes the weird James Baldwin episode.
Sure.
Where I was like, what are we doing? Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, looking at it as a whole, I feel like it works better. I think your biggest issue is Jessica Lange's present in this episode, his mother.
Yeah.
I think that if this was him making peace, even if hypothetically or conceptually, with the women, I think that would have felt more coherent. I think sort of like, because we know his mother was a piece of work, point blank, before Jessica Lange has even stepped foot on screen. And again, it was a really delicious use of her. I don't know what it is about her. She is so captivating.
She's so fantastic. She's definitely got, like, the it factor or whatever. But you're right. I think that her in this episode, honestly, I don't know. Because, again, it was so fun to watch her do this and, like, be this character. But for my money, she's totally unnecessary to the narrative as well. So it's like
she really
her
is.
and Ann Woodward and, like, I guess Joanne Carson is...
No, I will defend Joanne Carson.
No, I was going to say, I guess she makes the most sense out of the three of them because he was closer at the end and he died at her house and everything.
I still maintain she needed...
way more.
2 more scenes.
I think even more than that.
I think they could, but I think that there needed to be 1 or 2 more, because the issue with the Thanksgiving scene is that was sort of about John O'Shea. And it needed to be about... We spent a lot of time with John.
None of him as well. Okay. It's just... Okay, the whole TV show... It was the actress, but it
was very Aida.
The whole show felt very disjointed. And I think only partially because they jumped times, I
wonder what a linear version would look like.
Better, I think.
Do you?
But also... I was going to say something.
Sorry.
Shit. Oh, the Joanne Carson thing specifically. When they were planning a party in the previous episode, I think,
Lee.
She was like, well, not Joanne. She's been so weird since the divorce. So it's like, why did we not have scenes of her before she divorced Johnny Carson? Them hanging out.
We needed a scene of him being friends with Joanne that wasn't a deathbed.
Yeah.
And
or getting punched in the face at Thanksgiving dinner by a horrible man.
But I do think when all is said and done, I think that the show justified both Joanne and Molly.
100%. That's what I'm saying.
And of the loose ends, like I said,
she's the least loose.
Yeah, she fits the most. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, the thing, because I also thought this was a fantastic showing for Diane Lane.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's been good the whole time.
No notes on the acting.
She's been good the whole time, but I feel like his scenes with her felt like they were about Slim in ways that the previous scenes, Slim was in them.
Sure.
But this was about her.
Yeah.
And that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I think one of the things, too, which I think I mentioned...
It was weird to me. I mean, I know we needed Lee, and I know we needed Callista Flockhart in this episode, but I sort of feel like I feel like they didn't have any need for closure. They didn't like each other. Like, they weren't actually friends. They were just sort of situationally.
But that's the thing, is, like, I went into this show hoping I guess not maybe hoping, but like thinking it was going to be like a very delicious kind of like a backstab a minute kind of, you know,
You wanted a better narrative.
more soapy kind
Yeah.
of thing. And it really was, it was a lot more meditative than I thought it was going to be, which is not necessarily bad, but it's like, then I don't think it was also advertised properly. And I think somewhere in between the two things, the thing I thought it was going to be and the thing it was is like the sweet spot where I think it could have really shown, because it just like it, I feel like it ended up kind of doing very little where it could have done much more and been more interesting.
It is sort of a wafer thin premise where
Yeah.
it's like he was kind of a novelty and he was friends with these women and then he gossiped about them too much and then they got mad.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, is that enough for 8 hours of television?
Well, no. But that's the other thing too,
like Joan and Betty had more of like a,
it was like a long running
an ongoing feud.
So that's the other thing too, is with this, and this goes back to my thing where it's like, I think not that it should have ended one episode sooner, but that the ending of episode 7 should have been the ending of the finale, because it's like, what better than to make amends with all of the people who meant less to you before you make amends with the
Babe.
person that meant the most to you. And so it's like, you're right, the lack of Babe in this episode seems criminal, if I'm being honest. And then I think it also would have been more impactful if that were the final shot of this show, was their like double death dream sequence thing that happened. I just think that would have been so much more poignant and like emotionally rich, because for my money, we had the emotion, the biggest emotional payoff of the whole series last week. And this just felt like a tacked on like addendum or something.
It's the like patented Ryan Murphy thing.
Yeah, it just fell apart right at the end there.
Where it's like he's contracted for 8 episodes and you're gonna get 8 episodes. Yeah. And a Ryan Murphy production always seems like it loses steam or focus about midway through.
Yeah.
Because remember Coven, and I like Coven in a general broad sense, but those last 3 episodes, you're like, what the hell is this shit? Like,
well, so it even was in that double feature season of American Horror Story.
The 5 episodes? I forgot about that.
Because it was a 6 episode like story and a 4 episode story. And I was like, honey,
I forgot all about that. We determined that
5 episodes the sweet spot?
Has to be the sweet spot for Ryan
because
Murphy
if it's any more than 5, it completely falls apart. And like the 4 episode like alien thing was just like not quite enough.
It was not enough. I still have 2 or 3 points I want to make, and I think I don't want to keep saying this word, but I have no other word to use. But I think the vibes of it are what I like the most.
Yeah, same.
And I think the history of it worked against it.
Sure.
Because I really like exploring, like I said, Truman is a character, for better or worse, that I relate a pretty good deal to. And so I really did enjoy seeing this version of a person's life, and especially, as I've said many times, the gay male, straight female relationship.
Yeah.
This is one of the better explorations of that I have seen, and that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking higher about it, is that fed me.
Okay.
If you think about art as being like nourishment, it was like that part was enough to feed me in a way that you're like, it's nice, but it was more of a like.
I feel like I was at a fancy restaurant and they served me something that had foam on top.
And so it is unfortunate because like you are correct, like the ending of that, like when it was over, you were like, that was abrupt.
So abrupt.
And it just sort of, unfortunately, the ending begged more questions than it answered, because, and in ways that I'm like, we were just sort of focused on and turned off by the notion of auctioning someone's ashes.
Yeah, that's gross.
Whether it's real or not.
No, it is. I looked it up.
But I'm saying it sort of does it did a disservice to everything up to that point because I was like, oh, I need to talk. I need to process this.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel like the period at the end of a sentence. It felt like a, huh? Wait, you can't just throw that out there
Yeah.
and expect me to not, like, I don't know, it sort of derailed me. And another thing is, I want to talk about this, but I don't have a point, so I don't know how to talk about it, but I find it fascinating telling fiction, historical fiction, I find fascinating.
Okay.
I think that that's ultimately...
Sure.
Because it's these are people that existed, and on one hand, I'm sort of like, because they are real people, you owe them truth. Like, you owe it to them and us
at least
tell
mostly
the truth.
Yeah.
But also, the parts that I found the most valuable about the show were the places where I could interpret or like
infer your own.
And I think the fact that, first of all, the fact that they're all dead, I think helps, and being more removed from it helps, because the more removed from history you are, I feel like the less seriously you need to take it. Understand what I mean, not what I'm saying.
No, I know what you mean, because like two of my favorite historical fiction things are The Pillars of the Earth, which takes place like 800 years ago, and Outlander, which takes place like 300 years ago. So I just feel like, I also think there's something about historical, because this, in that case, this is more like a biopic, in which case,
that's a good word.
We are like not, we're in a really bad place for biopics right now, because people are really not doing it right, in my opinion, for like the last long while. And so for me, I prefer historical fiction that's like where the historical figures exist, but at the fringes of the story that you're telling about made up people, you know, like where, like, sure,
some Forrest Gump.
Well, not really Forrest Gump. No, that's hilarious. But it's like with Outlander, it's like Claire Fraser's not real, you know, Jamie Fraser's not real, but it's like those as an archetype, they exist.
Well, and one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time is Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah.
And historically, that movie is offensive and does a disservice to history. But
offensive, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't even say disservice. I think it's a funny interpretation of like something that could have happened, because a lot of the events in that movie are true. It's just the culmination. Well, but
I like, because like to distill World War II down to a 2.5-hour narrative is impossible.
Yeah,
and I love sort of.
You have to pick apart.
Well, but I love the fantasy of it. I love the catharsis of it. I love the, like, but that only works because I know the history?
Sure. No, it's weird, because it's one of those things that it's like the more things that you absorb, the more you get, because I remember the moment that I realized that Outlander takes place at the same time as
Outlander
Black Sails.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit.
There was another one, too. There was like 3 things we were watching.
Yeah.
Oh, because the movie Belle.
Yeah.
With Gugu.
Uh-huh. It's around the same, I think.
All involved the same trial.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah, that's fun. Isn't Outlander, like, actually extremely accurate?
It's pretty historically accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like yes, there probably was a J.B. Fraser, but like, then you take liberties. You're like, presumably this clan existed and they did this, and there is evidence of like a huge Scottish populations immigrating to the United States after the rebellion failed and stuff like that. So it's like, it's interesting, but I guess don't come for me. I know it wasn't the United States yet. Please give me a fucking break. The colonies. I just could hear it already. You don't know your American history. It's fucking boring. That's why I don't know it. But yeah, I get what you mean. I feel like I came in really hot. I do want to make it clear.
You do sound like you did not like it.
No, I did like it. I just did find myself at the end going,
are you hung up on the potential?
But for what?
Yeah.
Yes, I am kind of hung up on the potential.
Because I'm in a very, to overuse another thing, I'm in a very, I adore a 2-star experience where it just sort of like, and this, I think this was more than 2. I think that this was easily 3 out of 5 for me.
Yeah.
and that's enough.
It's like very middle of the road, but it's very middle of the road for something that, in my opinion, should have been like a 4.5. Yeah. With the caliber of people who were involved in the creation of this show.
I mean, it's similar. Go ahead.
Is just like, it feels wasteful.
And I think the legacies can also do it a disservice. Because, I mean, comparing it, going back to the Ryan Murphy production, you know, both Feud, Betty and Joan, and American Crime Story, The People vs. OJ.
Yeah.
Those blazed out of the gates.
Yeah.
In a way that Versace, the assassination of Versace, wasn't bad by any metric, but comparing it to OJ, I was like, eh.
Well, and I really liked the Monica Lewinsky, but yeah.
So I think in that regard, like, I think if this was just Capote versus the Swans, but I also don't mind the umbrella. I don't know. I largely I had a good time.
Well, just like, okay, this is the last thing I'll say, and then we can sign off. You're totally right. I don't think it needed to be under the Feud banner, because that also sets a precedent for me, because like you said, Betty and Joan's feud was long running. Like, basically their whole careers, they were fighting against each other. And this, like you said, it's like, well, he wrote a mean article about them, and then they were mad at him for 10 years.
And then they broke up.
And then and I'm like, I guess, like, that's just, doesn't feel like enough there. Like, it was just like one thing, not like a whole systemic.
I also want something a little bit more timely and a little bit more poppier. So I think I want, like, Feud, like, Madonna versus Elton John, or like.
Are they feuding?
They do not like each other.
Oh, shit.
And also throw Cher in there. Cher and Madonna have, like, an ongoing. And
well,
I mean, I joke all the time about Britney versus Christina, but it's like...
Well, that's like... I feel like, well, what about Britney versus Justin?
I don't want that.
No. I feel like the problem with your Madonna versus Elton John is that Madonna has to be dead, because she made those poor girls go to Madonna boot camp and then canceled the whole goddamn movie.
She's such a menace.
So, like, what the fuck?
Such a menace. Oh my god.
No, but I take your point. I do feel like something more recent would would maybe be a little bit punchier.
Y2K is very in vogue, and it is a soft spot for me, and probably always will be. Yeah. There's such a kitschiness to it. Mostly I'm just salty that The Idol was taken away from me last year. I want to see the original incarnation of The Idol.
Yeah.
That was like a Y2K masturbatory fantasy before they turned it into a literal The Weeknd masturbatory fantasy.
It makes me feel feelings that I don't want to feel about The Weeknd.
Ugh. Yeah. It was... So, yeah, that was our take.
Yep.
So, who knows if and when we're going to get any more of this. So, I don't know. We hope you enjoyed yourself. Like and subscribe. Watch the space.
Well, I did say we are getting another crime story, because Chloe Sevigny is going to play Kitty Menendez. Right. So, it's the Menendez brothers.
Right.
Yeah. So that, I'm gonna buckle right in for it. I'm gonna be here with popcorn and bells on, but this does seem to be like the trend now with the Ryan Murphy joint, is I'm just like,
I feel like we should start incorporating little, like, gimmicks or shticks, because I kind of want to do like a power ranking
of Ryan Murphy.
Well, no, because for me, no, it won't work, because I'm going to get too caught up on because, like, I guess actually Callista Flockhart was my favorite, but I didn't really care for Lee. Well, because I was going to be like, Babe, CZ.
Yeah. Well, like, how do you
Lee,
define power?
Joanne.
Like, power within the show, or like
your takeaway?
Okay.
What was your takeaway? What are you going to remember when you think of this show?
Slim.
Really?
I love Diane Lane.
Yeah.
I am like
I said,
I'm all in Diane Lane.
She would be third for me.
Diane Lane and Chloe Sevigny, for sure.
This was a great showing for Chloe.
It's just like, Naomi Watts is always worth your time. So it like that was almost like the fact that she was so good as Babe is almost just like window dressing.
I need to watch Mulholland Drive again.
I've never seen it. I don't like David Lynch. Isn't that's who it is, right? Yeah, it's David Lynch. Don't like David Lynch.
You're not gonna.
Yeah. I would watch it, but
I caught like from the middle to the end of it back in 2008. And it was very, yeah, I have a question. Number one, how dare you?
How dare you? I have a lot of questions.
So, okay. Bye.
Bye.